Ida B. Wells, prominent journalist, activist, and researcher in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In her lifetime, Ida B. Wells battled sexism, racism, and violence. As a skilled writer, Wells used her skills as a journalist to shed light on the conditions of African Americans throughout the South. Born an enslaved person in Holly Springs, Mississippi, on July 16, 1862, Wells was the oldest daughter of James and Lizzie Wells. Growing up during the Civil War in the Deep South, the family faced racial prejudices and were restricted by discriminatory rules and practices. Because of this, Wells' parents became politically active in Reconstruction-era politics. Her father, James, was involved with the Freedmen's Aid Society and helped start Rust College and served on the first board of trustees. Rust College, a school for the newly freed enslaved people, would later become Shaw University. It was at Shaw University that Wells received her early schooling. However, at the age of 16, she had to drop out when tragedy struck her family. Both of her parents and one of her siblings died in a yellow fever outbreak, leaving Wells to care for her other siblings. Ever resourceful, she convinced a nearby country school administrator that she was 18 and landed a job as a teacher. Later on, as a young adult in May 1884, Wells was taking a train ride from the city of Memphis to Nashville. This would become a personal turning point that resulted in her passionate activism. After having bought a first-class train ticket, she was outraged when the train crew ordered her to move to the car for African Americans. She refused on principle. Wells was thrown off. She subsequently filed a lawsuit against the train car company, winning a $500 settlement in a circuit court case. The decision was later overturned by the Tennessee Supreme Court. This injustice led Wells to pick up a pen and write.
The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them.
Wells started to write about issues of race and politics in the South. A number of her articles were published in black newspapers and periodicals under the moniker Iola, but it was a lynching in Memphis in 1892 that further incensed Wells. One of her friends who owned a neighborhood store was attacked by a lynch mob and hung with 2 other men. This led Wells to begin an anti-lynching campaign and turned her attention to white mob violence. Wells wrote newspaper articles decrying the lynching of her friend and the wrongful deaths of other African Americans. She became skeptical about the reasons black men were lynched and set out to investigate several cases. Putting her own life at risk, she spent too much traveling in the South, gathering information on other lynching incidents. Ida B. Wells published her findings in a pamphlet and wrote several columns in local newspapers. Her expose about an 1892 lynching enraged locals to the point where they burned her press and drove her from Memphis. After a few months, the threats became so bad, she was forced to move to Chicago, Illinois. In 1893, Wells published A Red Record, a personal examination of lynchings in America. That year, Wells lectured abroad to drum up support for her cause among reform-minded white people. In 1895, Wells married famed African-American lawyer Ferdinand Barnett. Together, the couple had 4 children. Wells traveled internationally, shedding light on lynching to foreign audiences. Abroad, she openly confronted white women in the suffrage movement who ignored lynching. In 1898, Wells brought her anti-lynching campaign to the White House, leading a protest in Washington, D.C., and calling for President William McKinley to make reforms. Wells attended a special conference for the Niagara Movement and was a founding member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP. Wells later cut ties with the organization, explaining that she felt the organization, in its infancy at the time she left, lacked action-based initiatives. Ida B. Wells was also a founder of the National Association of Colored Women's Club, which was created to address issues dealing with civil rights and women's suffrage. Wells died of kidney disease on March 25, 1931, at the age of 68 in Chicago, Illinois. Wells left behind an impressive legacy of social and political heroism. With her writings, speeches, and protests, Wells fought against prejudice, no matter what potential dangers she faced.
One had better die fighting against injustice than die like a dog or a rat in a trap.